Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever stopped to think about what it really means when a man decides to explore a woman's pleasure, not just physically, but intentionally? Today, we're going to talk about a subject that many shy away from, yet it plays a powerful role in intimacy, trust, and emotional connection. Men who go down on women, who engage in oral sex, are often misunderstood, judged, or even labeled in all kinds of ways. But here's a perspective you might not have considered. When we talk about intimacy, most people instantly think about the physical act itself, what the body is doing, what positions are involved, or what feels good in the moment. But true intimacy goes far deeper than that. It's about connection. It's about presence. And one of the most overlooked but powerful elements of this is intentional pleasure. The kind of pleasure that is not rushed, not selfish, and not just about getting to a finish line, but one that is offered with thought, care, and emotional presence. Intentional pleasure is powerful because it speaks volumes without saying a word. When someone chooses to give pleasure with intention, especially in the context of a romantic or sexual relationship, what they're really doing is offering a part of themselves. They are saying, I see you. I care about how you feel. Your experience matters to me. That kind of attention has the power to dissolve barriers, build trust, and ignite a deeper sense of emotional safety. It is no longer just about touching a body. It becomes about touching a soul. This is especially important in a world where quick gratification and surface-level connections are often the norm. For many women especially, this kind of care in the bedroom is not something they encounter frequently. A lot of them have been conditioned to put their partner's satisfaction first, to stay silent about what they like, and to accept a kind of intimacy that feels one-sided. So when they meet someone who gives pleasure intentionally, slowly, attentively, and without pressure, it can be transformative. It becomes a space where they feel safe to open up, express themselves, and experience their own pleasure without shame or guilt. And that changes everything. Intentional pleasure also shows emotional intelligence. It demonstrates that a person is tuned in, that they are listening, not just with their ears, but with their whole being. They notice the small reactions, the subtle shifts in breath, the sounds of enjoyment or discomfort, and they adjust accordingly. They aren't doing it for validation or to tick a box. They're doing it because they genuinely want to create a positive experience for their partner. And that's incredibly rare. More importantly, intentional pleasure reflects how someone shows up in other areas of life. The way someone treats their partner in the most vulnerable moments often mirrors how they treat others in day-to-day life. A person who gives pleasure intentionally tends to also be thoughtful in conversation, generous in support, and dependable in action. It becomes less about physical attraction and more about emotional depth. That kind of intimacy lingers. It stays with you, not just in memory, but in how you begin to expect and demand more meaningful connections in the future. We sometimes reduce intimacy to physical mechanics, but when it's done with intention, the act becomes spiritual. It becomes a language of its own, where bodies communicate feelings that words often can't capture. Think of the difference between someone who's just going through the motions and someone who's completely present, making you feel seen, heard, and valued. The difference is night and day. One leaves you feeling used, the other leaves you feeling loved. Intentional pleasure is not about performance. It's not about putting on a show. It's about being present enough to know when to slow down, when to hold space, and when to just be still. It's about asking without speaking, what do you need right now? And then doing your best to provide that, even if it means letting go of your own expectations for a moment. And ironically, it's often in those moments of selflessness that the most satisfaction is found, because giving becomes more fulfilling than receiving. In the end, what makes intentional pleasure so powerful is that it's rooted in care. It's driven by the desire to connect, to uplift, to bring joy, not to control or impress. And when two people can come together in that way, where each person feels safe, desired, and fully accepted, that's when intimacy becomes something sacred. Pleasure is not just about the body, it's about the heart, the mind and the spirit. And when it's given with intention, it becomes more than just an act. It becomes an experience, one that nourishes, heals, and strengthens the bond between two people in a way that nothing else can. Oral sex, when approached with care and consent, can be one of the most intimate and vulnerable acts shared between two people. But beyond its physical nature, it holds a deeper emotional and psychological meaning, especially when viewed through the lens of emotional intelligence. It's easy to reduce it to a mere physical act, often discussed in casual or crude terms, but when a person chooses to engage in oral sex with genuine intent to please and connect with their partner, it reveals a great deal about their emotional maturity and self-awareness. Emotional intelligence is, at its core, the ability to recognize, understand, and respond to both your own emotions and the emotions of others. It's about empathy, patience, respect, and intuition. A person with high emotional intelligence is not just physically present, they are emotionally present. They pay attention, they listen without words, and they try to meet their partner's needs, not just to please them, but because they genuinely care about their emotional and physical well-being. That is the foundation of giving oral sex in a way that is truly meaningful. For someone to willingly and respectfully explore this aspect of intimacy, it often requires them to put aside ego. It's not about being in control or being the center of attention. In fact, it flips the narrative. It places the focus entirely on the other person. This shift in dynamic requires vulnerability, trust, and a certain level of selflessness. A person who chooses to give without the guarantee of immediate reciprocation demonstrates a unique kind of strength. It shows they are secure in themselves and not threatened by the idea of prioritizing someone else's pleasure. Additionally, oral sex requires attentiveness. It's not a one-size-fits-all experience. Every person is different, different likes, sensitivities, responses, and comfort levels. A partner who understands this and takes the time to learn, to observe, and to adjust accordingly is clearly in tune with more than just physical cues. They are actively trying to understand what brings their partner comfort and joy. That is empathy in action, and that empathy is a clear marker of emotional intelligence. It also demonstrates strong communication skills, spoken and unspoken. While some might assume that communication is only about words, the truth is that the best communication often happens in silence. Eye contact, body language, pacing, pausing, these are all forms of communication. Someone who is emotionally intelligent can hear these signals and respond appropriately, creating a space where their partner feels safe to express pleasure or discomfort without fear of judgment. What makes this act even more significant is the level of trust involved. For many, receiving oral sex means allowing another person access to a very private, vulnerable part of themselves. It can bring up insecurities, past trauma, or fears about how they are perceived. A partner who approaches this with sensitivity, patience, and reassurance shows a high degree of emotional awareness. They understand that intimacy isn't just physical, it's psychological. They know that the mind needs to feel safe for the body to fully relax and enjoy the experience. That's not just sexual skill, it's emotional skill. Moreover, oral sex done with emotional intelligence often strengthens the overall bond in a relationship. It communicates, I care about your satisfaction. I care about what makes you feel good. I want to give to you. It becomes a way of building trust, deepening emotional connection, and reinforcing affection in a very tangible, personal way. It's not something done out of obligation or to prove anything. It's an act of giving, rooted in love, curiosity, and respect. People with emotional intelligence also understand boundaries. They don't push, pressure, or assume. They ask, they listen, and they respect when the answer is no. They are emotionally in tune enough to recognize that consent is ongoing, and they take pride in creating a space where their partner feels both desired and safe. That level of understanding sets them apart from those who view sex as just a conquest or a task to check off. In a society that often encourages emotional detachment or superficial expressions of sexuality, those who approach oral sex with emotional intelligence bring something far more valuable to the table. They remind us that true intimacy isn't about performance. It's about presence. It's about giving with the heart, as much as with the body. And when that kind of intention and emotional awareness is present, even the simplest acts can become deeply meaningful, powerful expressions of connection and love. True intimacy isn't simply about physical closeness or romantic gestures. At its core, intimacy is about feeling safe emotionally, mentally, and physically with another person. It's about opening yourself up, showing who you truly are, and trusting that you will be accepted without judgment. And this depth of connection doesn't happen by accident. It is built on a foundation of security and confidence, both within the individual and within the relationship itself. Without these two elements, intimacy can easily become superficial or even performative. Security in this context refers to emotional safety. It's that deep-rooted sense that you can express your thoughts, desires, fears, and boundaries without being dismissed, ridiculed, or shamed. When a person feels secure in themselves, they are not threatened by vulnerability. They do not view openness as weakness, but rather as a gateway to deeper connection. They create an environment where their partner can be fully seen and heard. And that's the kind of space where real intimacy thrives. Confidence plays a major role in this dynamic as well. A confident person doesn't need to dominate or control to feel powerful. In fact, the most confident individuals often lead with humility and curiosity. They are comfortable with their own identity, and because of that, they don't feel threatened by their partner's complexity. They are open to learning, to listening, and to evolving within the relationship. This kind of confidence is not about arrogance or self-centeredness. It's about self-assurance and stability. When someone brings both confidence and security into a relationship, it changes everything. Communication becomes easier, more fluid. You're not second-guessing your words or walking on eggshells. You're not afraid that honesty will cost you love. Instead, you feel encouraged to bring your full self to the table, and when both people in a relationship feel that same level of freedom and acceptance, the intimacy that follows is real and lasting. One of the most common barriers to intimacy is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, fear of judgment. Insecure partners often mask these fears through defensiveness, avoidance, or overcompensation. They may struggle to be emotionally available or fully present because they are too busy trying to protect themselves. But confident, secure individuals approach relationships differently. They don't operate from a place of fear. They operate from a place of abundance. They know that love isn't about perfection, it's about connection. And they are willing to risk being seen for who they really are because they believe in their own worth. Security also allows a person to honor their partner's boundaries without feeling offended or rejected. When someone says no, a secure and confident person doesn't take it personally. Instead, they respect that boundary and appreciate the honesty. This respect builds trust. It reassures the partner that they won't be pressured or pushed beyond their comfort zone. That in turn makes them feel safer and more likely to open up even further. In the realm of physical intimacy, these qualities are especially important. The most satisfying and meaningful sexual experiences don't come from technique alone. They come from presence, from being fully engaged, attentive, and attuned to your partner. A confident lover is not focused on their own performance or validation. They are focused on the shared experience. They are curious about what brings their partner joy. They ask questions. They observe. They adapt. And all of that becomes possible because they are not trapped in their own insecurities. This is why security and confidence are so deeply attractive, not just in a romantic or sexual sense, but on a human level. We are naturally drawn to people who make us feel safe, accepted, and valued. People who are steady, grounded, and emotionally available. That is the energy that invites intimacy. That is the presence that allows someone to truly let go and be themselves. When you feel safe with someone, your walls come down. You laugh more freely, you share more deeply, and you love more openly. You're not performing, you're existing. And that is what intimacy is truly about. Two people showing up authentically and being met with love and understanding. Security and confidence don't just enhance intimacy, they make it possible. They are the roots from which trust, passion, and connection grow. And when those roots are strong, the relationship doesn't just survive, it flourishes. In any healthy and fulfilling relationship, intimacy cannot thrive on one-sidedness. Whether it's emotional closeness, physical touch, or sexual connection, pleasure should never be treated as a reward for one partner and an afterthought for the other. It should be mutual and shared, an exchange of presence, attention, and care. When both partners are invested in each other's joy, it shifts the dynamic from performance to connection, from expectation to partnership. And that shift makes all the difference. Too often, the conversation around pleasure, especially sexual pleasure, is framed in a way that centers one person, usually the man, while the other is expected to receive passively, or worse, simply exist as a means to an end. This imbalance creates a culture where true intimacy is stifled and where some partners feel unseen or even unworthy of satisfaction. But when both people in a relationship understand that pleasure is something to be given and received equally, a deeper connection begins to form. Mutual pleasure requires presence. It demands that each partner shows up not just for themselves, but for the other. This means listening, noticing, and caring about what makes the other person feel good, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. It also means being willing to share your own desires without fear of judgment, trusting that your partner values your experience just as much as you value theirs. When this kind of open, honest exchange is happening, intimacy becomes more than just a physical act. It becomes a conversation between two souls. One of the most powerful things about shared pleasure is that it builds trust. When someone makes the effort to understand what you enjoy, what feels good, what makes you feel safe, and then honors that, it sends a clear message. You matter to me. That kind of attention creates emotional safety, which in turn allows both people to open up more freely. When you feel confident that your pleasure is just as important as your partner's, you are more likely to be expressive, adventurous, and emotionally present. That's the foundation of a satisfying and lasting relationship. It's also important to recognize that mutual pleasure doesn't always mean doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. It's not always 50/50 in the moment, but rather about both people feeling that their needs and desires are considered and fulfilled over time. It's a rhythm that requires communication and compassion. Sometimes one partner may give more, and at other times the roles will reverse. What matters is the spirit of reciprocity, the unspoken understanding that both people are equally invested in each other's joy. This level of giving and receiving can only happen when both individuals are emotionally attuned and willing to prioritize their partner's experience as much as their own. That's not always easy, especially in a society that often portrays intimacy through a selfish or goal-oriented lens. But shifting the focus from what can I get to what can we share transforms not only the quality of your intimate moments, but the strength of your entire relationship. When pleasure is mutual, it becomes an act of generosity. You begin to find joy in your partner's happiness, in their laughter, in their moans, in their comfort. And likewise, your partner begins to find joy in your expressions of pleasure and fulfillment. This creates a beautiful cycle of giving and receiving that keeps intimacy alive and evolving. It's no longer a task or obligation. It's something you both look forward to, something you both look forward to, something you co-create. Another layer of shared pleasure is the emotional connection that builds outside the bedroom. When you feel emotionally supported, when you feel heard and seen throughout the day, that connection carries over into your physical relationship. Mutual pleasure doesn't begin with touch. It begins with presence, respect, and understanding. It begins with the small moments where you affirm each other, uplift each other, and make each other feel valued. Ultimately, pleasure should never be transactional. It should not be something one partner owes the other. It should be an act of love, of expression, and of shared joy. Both people deserve to feel wanted, to feel desired, and to feel satisfied. And when both individuals enter intimacy with that shared goal, what they build together is far more powerful than just physical satisfaction. They create a bond, a connection rooted in care, curiosity, and compassion. When pleasure is mutual and shared, intimacy becomes more than just an activity. It becomes a language that says, I see you, I care about you, I want to give to you just as you give to me. That's the kind of intimacy that lasts. That's the kind of connection we all deserve. For far too long, female desire has been ignored, misunderstood, or treated as something secondary, something that only exists in response to male desire rather than a powerful, autonomous force of its own. This imbalance has created generations of women who have been taught to mute their needs, minimize their pleasure, and prioritize the satisfaction of others over their own. But in any healthy and emotionally intelligent relationship, respect for female desire is not only essential, it's foundational. It reflects not just how much you value your partner's body, but how deeply you respect her as a person. Female desire is complex, multifaceted, and deeply emotional. It is influenced by feeling safe, seen, appreciated, and emotionally connected. It doesn't always present itself in bold, obvious ways. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, or even hesitant, especially if a woman has been conditioned to feel shame around her own pleasure. This is why respect becomes so important. Respect allows space. It gives permission. It listens carefully instead of assuming. It replaces pressure with patience. And that creates the environment in which desire can flourish. When a man respects a woman's desire, he doesn't view it as something to conquer or manipulate. He doesn't treat her pleasure as a bonus or an afterthought. Instead, he honors it as an equal and essential part of their shared intimacy. He's not threatened by her needs or preferences. In fact, he seeks to understand them, not because he wants to perform or impress, but because he genuinely cares about her experience. That kind of presence makes a woman feel safe. It makes her feel valued, and it allows her to show up authentically in the relationship without fear or shame. Respecting female desire also means letting go of harmful stereotypes. Society often paints women as either too much or not enough, too sexual and therefore easy, or not sexual enough and therefore cold. These narrow definitions box women in and force them to perform a version of themselves that feels inauthentic. But when a partner approaches her desire with curiosity rather than judgment, with openness rather than assumptions, it allows her to explore and express her sexuality on her own terms. That freedom is not just empowering, it's healing. This level of respect is especially important in physical intimacy. A woman's body is not a puzzle to be solved or a task to be completed. It's a living, breathing part of who she is. To respect her desire is to slow down, to pay attention, and to respond not to what you think she should like, but to what she actually communicates through her words, her body, her sounds, and her silences. It's about creating a space where she doesn't feel obligated to perform, but where she can relax into her own pleasure because she knows it's truly welcomed. Emotional attunement is key. When a woman expresses a boundary or hesitation, a respectful partner does not take it as rejection. He takes it as valuable information. He adjusts, checks in, and continues building trust. That trust deepens the connection and actually fuels desire in a more genuine and sustainable way. A woman who feels emotionally safe is far more likely to explore, to open up, and to be fully present. Respect is what unlocks that level of intimacy. Respecting female desire also means being willing to communicate, asking what she likes, what she wants, and what she needs without ego, without entitlement, and without making it transactional. It means recognizing that desire is not linear. It ebbs and flows. Some days it's high, other days it's quiet. A respectful partner doesn't make her feel guilty for the changes. Instead, he learns to move with her rhythm, to meet her where she is, and to support her journey without pressure or frustration. Ultimately, when female desire is respected, intimacy becomes a shared experience instead of a one-sided act. Both partners feel seen, honored, and heard. The woman is no longer a passive participant, but an equal contributor in the relationship. Her pleasure matters. Her voice matters. Her comfort and enthusiasm become guiding lights, not obstacles to be overcome. In a world where women are constantly told to tone themselves down, to make themselves smaller, or to exist for someone else's satisfaction, being with someone who truly respects their desire is revolutionary. It changes how she sees herself, how she relates to her body, and how she trusts others. That respect lays the groundwork for intimacy that is not only passionate, but emotionally rich, lasting, and deeply human. Relevant, because at the end of the day, real intimacy is not about taking, it's about honoring. And when you honor female desire with the respect it deserves, you create space for a connection that's not just physical, but soul deep. Talking about pleasure is one of the most natural and necessary conversations any individual or couple can have. Yet it continues to be treated like something shameful, secret, or even taboo. For many people, especially women, discussing what feels good, what they want, and what they need has often been discouraged or dismissed. They've been taught to prioritize modesty over expression, silence over curiosity, and other people's comfort over their own desire. But the truth is, there is no shame in talking about pleasure. In fact, avoiding these conversations is what leads to disconnect, dissatisfaction, and emotional distance in relationships. Pleasure is part of being human. It's not a sin. It's not a weakness. It's not a selfish indulgence. It is part of our emotional and physical well-being. When people are denied permission to talk about pleasure, they are also denied the right to fully inhabit their bodies and their relationships. And this silence breeds misunderstanding, resentment, and unmet needs that could easily be addressed through open, honest communication. Talking about pleasure is not just about sex. It's about connection. It's about understanding yourself and your partner more deeply. It's about learning what brings joy, comfort, arousal, and fulfillment, and creating space for those things in your life together. When you allow those conversations to happen without shame, you build a stronger emotional foundation. You create an atmosphere where vulnerability is welcome, where curiosity is encouraged, and where both partners feel safe expressing themselves. It also helps dismantle unrealistic expectations and assumptions. Too often, people go into relationships believing that their partner should just know what they want, or that asking for what they need makes them needy or demanding. But no one is a mind reader. Expecting someone to intuitively know how to satisfy you without ever talking about it sets both people up for failure. Honest conversations about pleasure eliminate the guessing game. They foster clarity, intention, and real intimacy. Still, there is fear around this topic. Many people are afraid of being judged, rejected, or made to feel embarrassed. That fear is real, and it's valid, especially for those who grew up in environments where sexuality was shamed or never openly discussed. But healing begins when you challenge that fear, when you allow yourself to speak your truth, even if your voice trembles, even if it feels awkward at first, because what's on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. When couples talk openly about pleasure, they create a new standard of intimacy, one that is honest, inclusive, and affirming. These conversations allow both partners to discover new things about themselves and each other. They become co-creators of their experience, choosing together what feels right, what needs to change, and what boundaries to honor. That level of shared decision-making is what makes intimacy sustainable and satisfying over time. Pleasure also doesn't look the same for everyone, and that's another reason why talking about it is so important. What feels good to one person might not feel good to another. What was pleasurable in one season of life may change in another. Needs and preferences evolve, and silence only stunts that growth. Regular shame-free communication about pleasure allows your relationship to evolve with you. It makes room for exploration, playfulness, and continuous learning. In truth, when people are able to talk openly about pleasure, they don't just improve their sex lives, they improve their confidence, their body image, their emotional awareness, and their ability to show up authentically in other areas of life. It's empowering to know that your desires are valid, that your pleasure matters, and that your voice is worthy of being heard. That sense of agency creates stronger, more respectful relationships. Removing shame from the conversation also helps shift the culture. When individuals, couples, and communities normalize talking about pleasure, they challenge the outdated narratives that have silenced people for generations. They teach the next generation that it's okay to know your body, to have desires, and to communicate them clearly. This ripple effect creates a healthier, more emotionally intelligent society, one where intimacy is rooted in respect, not repression. There is no shame in talking about pleasure. There is power in it. There is clarity in it. There is healing in it. When we begin to speak about what brings us joy, what lights us up, and what helps us feel connected, we begin to take ownership of our bodies, our needs, and our relationships. And that ownership is not something to be hidden. It's something to be celebrated. Giving is often celebrated as a fundamental expression of love and care, but it's important to understand that true giving goes far beyond simple gestures or material gifts. At its core, giving is about offering a part of yourself, your time, your attention, your energy, your vulnerability to someone else without expecting anything in return. When it comes to intimacy and relationships, giving takes on an even deeper meaning. It becomes a powerful act of connection, trust, and selflessness that strengthens the bond between two people in profound ways. To truly give in the context of love means to be present and intentional. It's about offering your presence fully, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. This kind of giving requires listening without distraction, understanding without judgment, and responding with kindness. It's about being attuned to your partner's needs and desires and choosing to prioritize them because you genuinely care. When you give this way, it sends a clear message. You are important to me. Your happiness and well-being matter. In relationships, the act of giving often manifests in small, everyday moments that may seem ordinary but are deeply meaningful. It can be as simple as offering a comforting touch after a hard day, taking the time to understand what your partner needs in a moment of vulnerability, or choosing to support them in their personal growth. These acts of giving demonstrate empathy and compassion. They show that love is not just a feeling, but a deliberate choice to nurture the other person. One of the most profound ways giving expresses love is through physical intimacy. When one partner chooses to give pleasure to the other, whether through touch, affection, or sexual connection, it's an act of generosity that transcends physicality. It says, I see you. I want to bring you joy. I want to make you feel valued. This kind of giving requires vulnerability and humility because it involves putting your partner's needs at the forefront without keeping score or expecting something in return. True giving is selfless, but also deeply rewarding. It's not about losing yourself or sacrificing your own happiness. Rather, it's about creating a space where both partners feel valued and cared for. When you give freely and authentically, it fosters mutual respect and deepens emotional intimacy. It builds trust because your partner knows they can rely on you, not just in moments of joy, but also in times of challenge. Giving in love also requires patience and understanding. Sometimes your partner's needs may be different from your own, or they may express their desires in ways that are unfamiliar. Approaching these differences with openness and a willingness to learn is a form of giving that honors the uniqueness of each person. It's a reminder that love is not about control or domination, but about collaboration and growth. Moreover, giving is a dynamic process. It flows back and forth between partners. While one person may give more at certain times, the balance over time is what sustains the relationship. When both people embrace giving as a way of loving, they create a partnership based on generosity, kindness, and shared commitment. This reciprocity allows both individuals to feel seen and appreciated, strengthening the emotional foundation of their connection. Importantly, giving as an act of love isn't limited to grand gestures or special occasions. It's found in the everyday choices we make to support and uplift each other. It's in the smiles exchanged over morning coffee, the encouragement given during difficult moments, and the quiet understanding shared in times of silence. These moments accumulate, weaving a rich tapestry of care and affection that sustains relationships through the ups and downs of life. When giving becomes a natural part of how two people relate, it transforms the experience of love from something fragile to something resilient. It shifts the focus away from what each person can get and toward what each person can offer. This mindset reduces conflict rooted in entitlement or expectation and replaces it with gratitude and generosity. Giving also has the power to heal. In moments of hurt or misunderstanding, choosing to give grace forgiveness, and compassion can repair wounds and rebuild trust. It reminds us that love is not about perfection, but about commitment. Commitment to keep showing up, keep giving, and keep caring, even when it's difficult. Ultimately, giving is the ultimate act of love and care because it embodies the essence of what it means to connect deeply with another human being. It requires courage to be open, humility to put someone else first, and generosity to share yourself without reservation. When giving is embraced fully in relationships, it creates a powerful cycle of love that nourishes both partners and allows intimacy to flourish in its truest, most beautiful form. To conclude, giving in love is much more than a simple act. It is the heart of true connection. When we give ourselves fully and selflessly, whether through time, attention, or tenderness, we build a foundation of trust, respect, and deep intimacy. This kind of giving transforms relationships, making them stronger, more compassionate, and profoundly fulfilling. It is through giving that love truly thrives and grows, enriching both partners in ways that go beyond words. Thank you so much for taking the time to reflect on this important truth about love and care. I wish you all the best on your journey toward deeper connection and meaningful relationships. May you always find joy in giving, and may your love be abundant and rewarding. Good luck, and thank you.